Thanks to Brilliant.org for sponsoring this video.
I hear Nebraska's nice.
Maybe. But it isn't for you to decide.
Hey, welcome to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and The Last of Us Season 1 was some of the best post-apocalyptic zombie content I have seen in a long time, and fans seem to agree. But it wasn't all that long ago that a show with walkers dominated Sunday night television. Game of Thrones? Well, I mean, the show had White Walkers, but no, I am talking about The Walking Dead.
We are the Walking Dead.
So I thought it'd be fun to compare and contrast these two shows, their main characters Rick and Joel, and how The Last of Us can avoid the same gruesome fate as The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, The Walking Dead. Yeah, that show ended like 5 years ago, right?
Actually, Doug, The Walking Dead had its series finale last year.
You're kidding. I thought it ended when Supernatural's dad killed the Invincible guy.
What?
The Negan guy played the Winchester's dad, and the Glenn guy voices Invincible. And Invincible was created by the same guy who created The Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman.
Ah, you're full of fun facts today, buddy. High five. So, Rick Grimes and Joel Miller are the respective leads of their two stories, for a time, but more on that in just a bit. Rick and Joel's journeys are two sides of the same coin. In the early seasons, Rick is a good man trying to become a bad man in order to survive, just like Joel is a bad man trying to find the good man that he used to be, the good man that died the same night as his daughter. Now, before the end of the world, Rick Grimes was your typical family man. Small-town sheriff's deputy with a wife and son, but his life wasn't perfect. In the series premiere, we hear Rick telling his partner Shane that he and his wife Lori are having some marital problems.
The last thing she said this morning, sometimes I wonder if you even care about us at all. I would never say something that cruel to her.
Joel, too, had marital problems in the pre-apocalyptic world. His wife left him shortly after his daughter, Sarah, was born.
Well, at least she didn't hook up with his best friend.
We were on a break!
Now, a key difference we need to keep in mind is that we see Rick's journey unfold over the first few years of the apocalypse. But with Joel, we saw a 20-year time skip between the day of the outbreak and the rest of the story. That's 20 years of character progression that is mostly a mystery for Joel. That's a lot of time, especially when compared to the mere 3.5-year time span between Season 1 and Season 9 of The Walking Dead.
3.5 years? That's it? But they had summer and winter like 9 different times.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. One thing that Joel and Rick both have in common is that they're both men who have spent a lifetime learning new skills. Now, in the case of these shows, they've learned how to fight and live off the land.
Not something you can relate to.
Nope, not at all, but I do challenge myself to learn something new every day. Lately, I've been learning math.
You know what's cooler than magic? Math.
Why? You're not in school.
Well, because learning math is challenging, but if I can learn math, then I can learn anything, and learning is a lifelong skill.
So what, you like read a lot of books or something?
Even better, I've been using Brilliant.org. They're the sponsor of this video. Brilliant is the best way to learn math, science, and computer science in a fun, interactive way. See guys, I was terrible at math and science in school, and maybe you were too. A lot of these subjects were difficult for me at that age, but Brilliant is great for understanding the world around us and concepts that I never thought I could learn. I especially love logic problems and non-linear thinking puzzles, and they're built more like games than classroom lessons. I mean, look guys, to learn anything, you've got to do it. Interactive learning is proven to be 6 times more effective than passive learning, you know, like watching videos. So the site uses these visual, engaging lessons that make them a fun part of my morning routine. These are short lessons that are built for busy people, although it is easy to get sucked into a really good lesson. I'm usually on about 10 to 15 minutes every morning. You interact with charts and graphs or robots and matchsticks to teach you these mathematic and logic concepts. I highly recommend the logic problems. They're fun and they've helped me develop analytical skills that have helped me solve problems at work.
So what, it like gives you superpowers?
It is a little bit like having superpowers, yes. So to try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/ScreenCrush or click the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Now back to Joel and Rick. Over these 3.5 years, we see Rick change a lot. In Season 1, we see Rick trying to hold on to the way things were. He even dons his police uniform, including his badge, in a world where that badge now holds no meaning.
It doesn't mean anything.
Season 1 features a hopeful Rick, a Rick who thinks there's still a way back to the way things were. After escaping Atlanta and being reunited with his family, Rick's nobility results in him risking everything and going back to the city. He feels bad about having to leave the trouble-causing Merle handcuffed on a roof.
You hear me?
Yeah, your voice carries.
And he promised Morgan, the man who saved his life, that he would turn on his radio every day at dawn so that they could meet back up. Now the smart choice, the survivalist choice, would be to forget about Merle and Morgan and stay with his family, but the noblest in Rick won't let him.
I'm going back.
Now, even after learning the degree to which the world has fallen apart, Rick maintains his hopefulness.
You're lying about no hope.
Season 2 is when we see Rick's faith shaken. Even with Carol's daughter Sophia going missing and his son Carl being shot, Rick still operates with the belief that it's important to maintain his moral structure from before the apocalypse. But he finds his choices continuously challenged by Shane.
Survival, Rick. It means making hard decisions, but you got this knack, man. You spread us thinner and thinner.
Shane becomes a physical embodiment of Rick's inner struggle, a struggle to determine what path he should take. The path of a hero who does the right thing, even if it puts himself and those he loves in danger. Or the more selfish path, the path that keeps him and his family alive, even if it means the suffering of others.
You don't think I would have done it?
Oh, man, I know you wouldn't.
You don't think I can keep Lori or Carl safe?
Now, we could do a whole video talking about whether or not it would be wrong of Rick to do whatever it takes to protect his family, even if that means hurting innocent people. Or would it not be wrong of him to do whatever it takes to protect them?
I will stay alive to keep them alive.
We actually do have a video on the channel talking about the most crucial episode of The Walking Dead and how it changed the show forever. But here I want to talk about how this episode changed Rick forever. When it's revealed that Sophia has been a walker stowed away in Herschel's barn the whole time, in this moment we see Rick struggling to do things Dale and Herschel's way by still holding on to the past.
You're still holding on! Let go!
But Shane finally has his blow up and calls for the group to come to their senses and realize that things have changed.
Rick, it ain't like it was before!
This is the moment when Rick realizes that in order to be the hero that his family and the group need him to be, he can't be a hero for everyone. For some, he's going to have to be their villain.
Rick, you can't just be the good guy and expect to live, okay?
I'm not the good guy anymore.
Over the seasons, we see Rick have several changes. At the end of season 2, he becomes the Rick-tator.
Fine. But get one thing straight. This isn't a democracy anymore.
After losing Lori, Rick goes a little crazy. But after winning the war with the governor, Rick overcomes his brief psychosis and abandons his isolationist mentality by accepting refugees from Woodbury. When the governor returns, he breaks Rick, both physically and mentally. After Rick's encounter with the Claimers and the cannibals on Terminus, we see Rick begin to question his return to nobility. He has once again been met with the consequences of trust and how dangerous people can be, especially those who have survived this long. This parallels Joel's thoughts on the dangers of people.
People? So what are they going to do, rob us?
Well, they'll have way more in mind than that.
The key difference here being that Joel used to be one of those dangerous people.
Hey, you know that guy who said he was hurt? How did you know it was an ambush?
I've been on both sides. It was a long time ago. We did what we needed to survive.
After Rick's encounter with the cannibals at Terminus, the group spends a lot of time on the run. They have no home. This is when we meet a more feral, animalistic Rick. When the group arrives at Terminus, we see Rick take on the appearance of his old self. But in reality, we're meeting the version I like to call Villain Rick. He becomes cocky, possessive, and cruel.
If they can't make it, then we'll just take this place.
Even after Rick ditched his cruel streak and once again became a more noble leader, he still holds on to a little bit of cockiness.
Fact is, I was about to ask for all of your stuff, only I'm thinking I don't have to kill any of you. Any more of you.
After Negan arrives and kills Abraham and Glenn and almost makes Rick cut his own son's arm off, Rick isn't the same for a long time. No plan of recourse, no plotting on how to defeat Negan or exact any revenge, he becomes completely submissive. But not out of weakness, but out of strength. He swallows his pride and does what he thinks he has to do to keep his people safe. In fact, after Negan's first trip to Alexandria, where he and the Saviors came to take half all their stuff, Michonne is having trouble accepting this new reality and insists that they fight back. Rick then brings up his old partner Shane as an example of why they have to do this, even if it's hard.
When I figured it out, and I figured it out pretty quickly, I wanted to break your jaw. But I didn't. That wasn't weakness. It took everything. His name was Shane. I know Judith isn't mine. I had to accept that. I did. This is how we live now. I had to accept that too, so I could keep everyone else alive.
When Rick realizes that submitting to Negan is not the answer and that Negan will continue to take and take, we are introduced to my favorite version of the character. I like to call him Rick Prime.
Person? I think that's taken.
Alright, well we'll just call him the best Rick then. A Rick who, after flipping and flopping between noble heroism and isolationist survivalism, this is a Rick that finds the perfect balance of all his past selves. He takes everything he's learned over the years to become not only the leader his people need him to be, but the leader that the Saviors need him to be as well.
What about Joel? You're supposed to be comparing the two of them.
I was just getting there, buddy. During the war with Negan, Rick loses Carl. While trying to help a fellow survivor, Carl gets bit. And before he dies, he asks that Rick and Negan find a way to work out their differences and end this war. Now, while Rick doesn't do exactly that, Rick allows Negan to live and uses him as a symbol.
You're gonna be evidence making a civilization.
Proving that perhaps Shane was wrong, and that things can still be the way they were if we refuse to have it any other way. Whereas Joel losing his daughter resulted in him becoming broken and going down a path of mere survival. He stole from and killed innocent people, and then he went on to work a dead-end job at a Fedra camp, which didn't give him much room to grow over those 20 years. But then came Ellie. Ellie was able to touch a part of Joel's heart left brutally scarred by the death of his daughter. Ellie gave Joel the spark he needed to find his old self from before the world ended, the same way that Carl's death gave Rick the perspective that he needed to find his old self and win the war with Negan. But Joel still has a lot of growth to do. Despite his post-apocalyptic journey being 20 years deep, most of these years have been stagnant in terms of growth. And while we saw Joel become a more noble version of himself when it came to protecting Ellie, he still has a lot of growing up to do. His most recent act, for example, was downright selfish. Him lying to Ellie about what happened at the hospital deprived her of a choice that was hers to make, similar to how Rick kept this infection-related secret from his group.
We're all infected. I thought it best if people didn't know.
Another similarity is that Rick and Joel both have adoptive daughters, Joel with Ellie and Rick with Judith.
I know Judith isn't mine.
Now, speaking of similarities, The Walking Dead and The Last of Us, of course, both have a lot of them. But let's talk about how The Last of Us can avoid the same fate as The Walking Dead.
What's your question?
My question is, what the hell? He is a vampire bat.
You see, there was a time when The Walking Dead was the most popular cable television show of all time, rivaling even Sunday Night Football ratings. But how did The Walking Dead go from over 17 million viewers to as low as 3 million in its final season?
Oh, I know. It became extremely repetitive, had too many filler episodes with characters walking through the woods reciting bad dialogue. The character deaths became meaningless. The storylines were being recycled. There were too many fake-out deaths. And let's talk about Glenn. Let's really get into that.
All right, hey buddy, take a breath, take a breath. Yes, The Walking Dead went on way too long and became massively oversaturated, not only within the series itself, but also its spin-off shows. Many fans dropped off the show after Negan arrived and beat Glenn to death with a baseball bat. And by the way, spoilers ahead for The Last of Us 2. And I fear that that can happen when Joel suffers a similar fate. In The Last of Us 2 game, we see Joel get beat to death with a crowbar. So with Pedro Pascal being such a fan favorite, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of a revolt after this happens in the show. But I think that can be avoided if they don't repeat The Walking Dead's mistakes. After Glenn was killed, we went 2 episodes without even seeing our main characters. The Walking Dead got really bad about doing these bottle episodes where we'd go like several episodes without seeing Rick and other leading characters, and they stretched out the whole Negan arc way too long. This made Glenn's death feel unearned and like a major waste, not to mention they fake killed him off just a few episodes prior. When Rick left The Walking Dead in season 9, it felt very sudden and meaningless. This resulted in even major fans who stuck around this long to finally abandon the show. And I think the way that The Last of Us can avoid Joel's death resulting in the series' death is by giving his death meaning, having the character of Joel and his impact on Ellie reverberate through the series even after he's gone, and start laying the groundwork for Ellie to become the series lead before you go off and kill Joel, which they've already kind of started doing while Joel was in a semi-coma following his stabbing. Ellie brilliantly carried those 2 episodes without Joel. Now, I don't think season 2 of The Last of Us is going to open with Joel's death. In fact, I think it's likely we won't see that happen until season 3. Plus, it's been confirmed that the second game will be adapted over multiple seasons of the show. So in short, these 2 characters' journeys began with a gunshot, Rick being shot by an assailant and Joel's daughter being shot by a soldier. Rick getting shot completely altered his journey. He didn't have a gradual transition between the pre- and post-apocalyptic worlds. He was thrown right into it after waking up 2 weeks later in a hospital bed, after the looting, after the military rolled through, and after the bombing. Rick woke up in a completely new world. Joel, on the other hand, had the one thing he cared about most in the world ripped from his arms with no chance of getting her back. Joel's love for Ellie is no doubt real, but there's also no doubt that Ellie is a reflection of his own daughter. Out of respect for Ellie and his own well-being, Joel is going to have to accept that she's not his daughter, and that it's not Ellie's job to fill that hole in Joel's heart. I think that is what's going to be explored in season 2, and it won't be until season 3 that Abby kills Joel. Abby being the daughter of the doctor that Joel killed when he was saving Ellie.
You killed my father. Prepare to die.
So there are some similarities and differences between The Last of Us Joel Miller and The Walking Dead's Rick Grimes. Well, up to this point, that is. Believe it or not, Rick is getting his own spin-off series coming, well, sometime. I mean, they've been teasing it for like 3 years. It was originally going to be a movie, but I guess they realized that no one really cares, so they didn't want to spend big movie money on it. So let me know, did you miss any fun similarities between Joel and Rick? Do you think that The Last of Us will overstay its welcome like The Walking Dead? Let me know down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.